Good morning, Affma. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
It's so good to see you. I know that you've been so busy, so grateful that you pull out a little time to share your work in education with us.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm excited.
What are you looking forward to for this upcoming school year? Like, how are you preparing for back to school?
I appreciate taking professional development to help build my skill set. I know I don't know everything. So right now, this year, my focus going into next year is helping my English language learners. And I know it doesn't just help my English language learners, it also helps all of my learners. Especially the biggest thing I found this past year was my students being able to speak in complete sentences, understanding vocabulary that they weren't used to seeing or hearing.
Tell us a little bit more about outside of growing your own skill set, what it looks like to get your classroom ready.
Definitely making sure it's ready for a student-centered learning. It's really not about me. It's really about what is going to help the students. So I look at how I'm going to set up my furniture. I look at how where my resources are going to go so that they're accessible to myself and the students. I look at is it going to be inviting for parents and students, and does it work with kind of our daily tasks that we have to do. I have to get our schedule together. I have to, how are we going to walk out the classroom? How are we going to get back in the classroom? There's so many things to think about, but if you do it early on, those are things you don't have to do later.
Management and routines, so important. Once those things are set, then the learning can happen, right?
Correct, correct.
So you have been a classroom teacher, you've been a mentor teacher, you've been a teacher leader. What advice would you give to other teachers as they get ready for back to school?
When I think of advice, I would say you definitely have to take care of you. So making sure you're ready mentally, and just know that there might be mistakes made and it's okay. We are going to be resilient and we're going to learn from those and we're going to move forward. Even, as a veteran teacher, I still make mistakes, but definitely being able to pick up and do better the next time. And those can be simple. I forgot to send that email in 24 hours to a parent. These are the things that are going to happen, and it's okay, because you're human. So just know that getting ready for the school year, remember your why you're there, what is your purpose, write it down if you're not sure. That is the biggest thing I did in my first year of teaching. We had to write a letter to ourselves and then read that at the end of the year. And it was really nice to hear what I was saying to myself then and what I had accomplished in my first year. So if that is something you need to do, even as a veteran teacher, write down your why, write down why you're there, write down what you want to accomplish that year and read it at the end. You'll be really surprised what you can do.
I wanted to know if and why you would think joy is important in your classroom.
Well, it's important because I feel like the mind in general, if you're happy when you're doing something challenging, you have more ability to hold on to that information if while it's happening, you're happy. And so, that is the biggest thing for me is to make sure that that learning environment is welcoming, is joyful. And I'm not the only one who can speak there. That's the biggest thing I've learned in education is that you have to make it an environment where students can speak loudly about what they need and that students can talk not necessarily back, but they can have a voice that is not just you listen to me all the time. No, I can listen to you. You have things that you can bring to the classroom as well. So I've always, changing that mindset of, the teacher is the one that's always right. The teacher is the only one that can speak and speak loudly. No, it also can be on the flip side. That's why I've seen most success is opening up the classroom to everyone. All teachers involved, and that means my little ones as well. They are also teachers.
What do you think is beneficial to educators today so they can be facilitators of that growth, so we can help teachers shine, so students can grow? What are your thoughts about the kind of support educators are looking for today?
I think overall, you have to look at your progress, not perfection. And so this past year, I worked with a teacher who had the same amount of experience I did, but was lacking the confidence in their skill set. And so I said, okay, let's focus on one thing. Let's focus on what do you want to accomplish this year? And that focus was, well, I want to really work on that, constructive response and that wonderful grade level. And so I said, okay, well, these are the things we can look at. But again, it's that confidence, but you had to hear, okay, I'm still working on some things as well, even though we have the same skill set and I look very confident. It's really understanding it's the progress over the perfection.
Let's move into instruction just a little bit. You mentioned the science of teaching reading. What's impacting you with the science of teaching reading, and as this shift has been going, and we've been working on it for a few years now, right? But it still seems fresh and new sometimes. So I'm interested to know what has been some of your biggest takeaways.
My biggest takeaway is that, of course, this is what I feel like we were always doing, but maybe the pieces didn't really connect as well.
Mhm.
Um, and that maybe goes back to resources that were being used, but I felt like it was always in place, but it maybe didn't connect as well. And I always thought that all the parts were important, but again, the connection between them is what I think we were missing. So I really love it. And I never thought it was something extra. I never thought it was anything hard. And that's that love for literacy, not growing up being a strong reader, not growing up having that strong foundation, but being able to do that for my students. And I appreciate using the resources that I have because I have seen the growth these past few years. And I can't say it's much faster, but the connections are being made much sooner, even my students who have gaps.
What are some resources that you really appreciate having at your fingertips to support those connections?
The resources are tied right to phonics. So I use phonics and word study. It's not a, Monday, Wednesday, Friday situation. I use that daily, along with a rich text that goes with my vocabulary development. Um, Also ties back in some of the phonological awareness, the phonics study we've done. The resources have to be meaningful and, of course, science-based. And so those resources are what I use, of course, with my razzle dazzle behind them.
Well, I've so loved this conversation. I think I have just one more question for you, Afma. I think. What do you like most about being a teacher?
Oh, what I like most is that it's the reward. So this is year 14 going into I finished year 14 going into year 15. I just recently went to a graduation party of my student from my second year of teaching. I feel like I was a part of their journey and I got to see the end portion, like, hey, you made it, we did it. And so these are the reminders I can get. And this is really truly why I teach. I really love the rewards that are not loud, but those gentle reminders that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
I like to call that your exponential impact, Afma. I believe that teachers have exponential impact. Think of all of the kiddos that have come through your classroom. Think of what they do in the world today. The light in them shines because of you. So,
Thank you. Thank you. I really love it. I just do. I wanted to be who I didn't have. I felt like, being an advocator, being a supporter, being an understander, and having a voice, giving my students voices at 5, at 6, at 7, giving them a voice to speak was what I wanted. And so I'm able to do that for my students.
you are. You are. Well, thank you so much, Afma.
You're very welcome.